Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of working on the ALTA container ship. If you've watched the previous videos, you'll know that we started off with looking at the design and kind of understanding and thinking about the scope of work, what we want, the layout, that type of stuff. And then video 2, we went into the actual mechanism of the massive opening bay door, as well as the connection system for the containers themselves and the systems that uses. Of course, I did show in the other video how this massive crane works. So in this one, we're going to be taking a look at the gantry crane and its systems, as well as the X-frame in here and how it's going to move around and shuffle the containers. But with all that said, it is supposed to be quite an advanced vessel. No, it is not automated. A lot of people were asking if it's going to be a fully automatic and automated vessel. But if you know my creations, if you follow my builds, you know that I do enjoy using the large machinery. So for something to be fully automated where you just click a button and it'll collect the container, that's not really my style. My style is the engineering and the operation of the large equipment. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the gantry and the other parts. It should be the final video, and after that, the ship should be ready for release. Now, if you watched the last video, you'll know that the bay door had a bit of, well, because it is on sliders and the system behind it, it's not always 100% reliable, even though it should be. So I kind of made it a two-part system, one where you open the bay door, and you can see here it's not all the way open, whereas now it is. So it's not really consistent. You may have to kind of play with it, but there you go. Now it's open, and then you press this, and that's the slider. So likewise, you could slide it back into place, and then close it, and see, this time it went all the way up, so it's good. But if it wouldn't, you just kind of turn the key until it does. I'd much rather that than an automated system that you have to wait 15 seconds for the whole process. This way it'll just be a simple button style connection, and it should iron out the kinks. Yeah, I did try a bunch of other mechanisms actually, including a funky system that kind of shakes the door open and shut to make sure that it is in fact going up rather than just sitting there, because usually it gets stuck on something with these sealed doors. So like you'll see it kind of start to shake here after a couple seconds, but even it got stuck. So I'm not sure if using the panel in this way versus flipping it upside down is better. Maybe someone like Lord Bison can actually comment, because Lord Bison makes a ton of different automated style creations. So in this case, I'm going to stick with the 2-button system until proven that there's something else that I should be doing. Of course, also, when you're in this control room, it's quite hard to see if that door is in fact open or shut, so we may apply this button on this wall or somewhere else where it's a little easier to understand and realize whether it's stuck or not. So those are kind of the complications. Now, this gantry crane should be quite self-explanatory, but in addition, making this gantry and this X-brace kind of slider, we're going to have to also make this room functional and have a proper, call it, layout. So obviously we said in here we're going to put these buttons, and I can go ahead and do that right away here. And I guess what we do know is that because in that room actually there's going to be kind of cameras everywhere, maybe it doesn't have to have the button on the outside. The reason why I don't really want the button on the outside is because in theory, you know, someone else can board that should not be aboard and just kind of open the gate, and I'd rather not have that. I'd rather have it up in the bridge, and I'd rather have it in this here room. So now we can just make sure everything's wired in properly. I did kind of quickly make it rather than, well, it's all part of the electronic system here, so that's fine. And we'll just label it. So this one is lower the bay door. This is slide open bay door. And of course you have to do it sequentially. And this is bay door locked or sealed. So that's how we know that it's fully sealed, and if it's not sealed, then we have to sort of play around with the system until it is green and happy. Alright, up here we have the deck container configuration, and here we have the hold container configuration, so inside the hold itself. Now maybe it's better to use the words, well, be consistent, I think. So if we have this, it should be hold or cargo area, but I mean hold is usually the inside part of the ship, so lower the hold door. But also hold is a synonymous for stop or wait or hold, so I'm not totally sealed with this one. And also lower implies like a lower level. But anyways, drop the bay door might be a better one, and lower the bay door. So I'm going to stick with bay here, and then on this wall, of course, this is the deck container configuration, and this is bay, even though all of these are called bays. So this is bays 4 and bays 3, and up here we got 1 and 2, so maybe, just maybe, call it the actual number. So we can call this bay 1 and 2 container configuration, and this could be bay 3 and 4 container configuration. So that way it's quite clear. I mean, you have to know your ship, you have to know where each of the bays are in relation to the rest of them. So that is sort of how that would work. Now up here with this gantry crane, it's on pivots or sliding tracks across and sliding tracks up and down. It's also on a sliding track across and a sliding track to open up this thing. So it has 4 independent sliding track systems that all have to kind of work together, I guess, and that's number 1. But this one here actually does work regardless, because this one has to open up and hold open this container arrangement in order for you to pick up and lower containers. So that is there, and then the rest of them, left, right, up, down, and forward and back, those are just purely on controllable sort of controllable interface. So what I will do, just for the purposes of this video, well, for now, is put a chair here so we could actually watch it, how it works, and then if need be, I will try to either put a second chair in here, but I think 1 chair is honestly enough, and this chair will control both this thing here, the X frame, and that. So we'll program that in after, but for now let's just make it on a simple chair. And we have the microcontroller that was made with the video that I had showed earlier. It was a beginner video, and it has sort of the method to control a slider. In the video I used composites, except here we want it on the seat, so I'm just going to use simple threshold functions to determine which way I want this thing to move. So of course we have our seat input, and if it's between -1 and -0.1, and then in the larger side, if it's between 0.1 and 1 in total. So we see here that this one is the positive one, so it actually has to be switched. We'll put it here, and we'll put this here. So this will now be our seat controlled pivot or slider, and really it works the exact same way as what I showed earlier, with the exception that now it's no longer on a composite. So nice little microcontroller to have. I do have a bunch of them, but I just wanted to show you the process. So here we can attach this to the seat. So let's start first with W and S. And W and S, I want to be pushing this whole thing out. So there are a lot of microcontrollers here, and you can see that now all of them are attached. Also, if you note here, this thing is attached to this grapple, call it, and there's one on the other side. So in addition to that, there's going to have to be a key to physically turn to actually activate said crane. So this will be release connector, and then at the very front will be release connectors. So you could actually park it in both places. That's fully intentional. If you find yourself needing to store this gantry crane on the front of the ship, you quite easily could. So that is nice there. And then here we have the gantry crane power, and then of course here it's to the battery, so we can just go ahead and plug that into our key, and we'll call this activate gantry, you know, unlock, but we may add other things to it. So activate gantry crane will reduce the hold duration. So that is one of the buttons. Another one of the buttons is going to be for another function. So now currently we have W and S. Likewise, we will put A and D, and that is going to go left and right with this thing here. So again, I said there's a couple of items that will go left and right with this. So we'll plug that into this one and this one. And then, last but not least, the physical up and down motion of this crane. Of course, that we're going to just put to up and down. And plug that in to here and here, as well as here and here. Now, there may be other connectors that are holding this thing in place. So we can actually plug in all of them to our unlock or release. And I believe there's one right in the center here. So we'll throw that in to unlock this. And we know that as soon as it's activated, there's going to have to be sort of a short time period where this thing goes out fully. So it's not quite a numerical switch box, or it is, but it's a little more advanced than a numerical switch box, because in essence, you're going to activate the crane. That's this. And when you activate it, you want your number output. So this thing is going to be attached to the crane arms that are going to hold the container. So obviously it is a numerical switch box, but it's not just a numerical switch box, because once you activate it, yeah, you want this thing to move. So we're going to have a constant number, and the constant number can be something like 0.5. It's fine. And that's going to be here on the on. And then when you deactivate it, you want to do the opposite. So you can put a function, and that function can be just a simple negative x, and it's going to be the same speed going to here. Now, the only thing to keep in mind is this will constantly work. It'll constantly be putting pressure and power through the motors. So we don't want it to always be activated. We only want to activate it for the first, like, let's say 5 seconds or something of this button, and the first 5 seconds when you deselect this button. So for that, we could put an XOR, meaning if it's selected or if it is not selected. So we have this, and we'll put a not. So if either it is selected or it's not selected, then what we can do is have a simple timer function, and that timer function will output an on signal when it is less than the duration. So this thing will activate this timer, which will be on for a constant number. So for a certain period of time, let's say for 4 seconds, it'll be on in either of these cases. We do have to make sure that it switches as well. So this timer is activated when it is pressed or when it is not pressed. The only thing to keep in mind is now it seems that it's always going to be doing one or the other based on this. So what you'll see is it kind of opens, and then as soon as that time is up, it starts to close again. So it doesn't really stay in that fixed position. So we don't want that. And also keep in mind that this seat has to be on 100% reset in order for this to work. It can't be on sticky because it's relying on the fact that you are using the buttons only like if and when you're using them. So there's no such thing as keeping them going. Let's at least test that first before we start to work on the rest of it. So you can see here, I'm holding it. Well, actually it wasn't activated, so it wasn't released. Anyways, it's moving down, it's moving up. We have to check why it was already moving, even though it should have been released. Okay, that's one part. Then up and down. Now that part is still attached, and then left and right. So left and right seems to work nicely here. Obviously we don't need it to move that far away on both ends. We really need it to stop once it's over top of the container. So having it go that far to the side may not be the best, but also I think I did it that way because in case you drop a container on the deck and it's not perfectly aligned, you could then pick it up and move it as such. So those are some things that I note right away. We have to see why this one was not activated. Well, there we go. That's why, because I actually put it on the brake. So that doesn't count. Release connector. And this one was on release connector. So that should work now. Why on earth these ones were moving before I had disconnected them? Let's see. So I guess I have to make sure that... oh, there we go. Well, that's why, because the... it was not in the right orientation. So here it's up and down. Over here it's up and down. Whereas over here, you could see that this is up and down. Whereas my actual arm itself is left and right. So I could easily just connect to that one and spin it around until it's in the proper orientation. And once it is, then we will be good. So that should be now up and down. If I just delete all this, you can see that it's now up and down there. Obviously have to connect this back, and we'll do the same thing on this side here by flipping this. And you can see that that's a nice way to see it. There we go. So that is now up and down. And of course we turn the key, it disconnects that. So that will now fully work our system. So now we're back to square one with this microcontroller. What I thought to do here is add two numerical switch boxes, one for the motion of it going outward. So once we activate it, we have this timer for 4 seconds, it moves out. Once we deactivate it, so once it's not pressed, there's another timer that goes to this switch box, and in essence will take it and put this value of -X through this and put it to this controller. So that should hopefully work now. If I jump over there, you'll see that this thing is not moving, which is good. And then if I turn this key, that should open up, and it should stay open. And it should stay open indefinitely until a time where we have to close it. Now, one thing I might even put up there are those brakes, because technically if something pushes up against this thing, it may end up moving. Anyways, we could move this left and right, we could move this up and down, and let's try. We're going down. And the idea is that when we go down, that it'll actually be able to lower a container all the way into this into the bay. So that's why these arms, if you see here, are this shape, that they should actually clear into the hold and can lower a container into the hold as well as pick it up out of the hold. Now I do see one problem right away, is that this thing is not opened up all the way, so maybe my timer was not enough, because I did only set a 3-second timer. We could also speed the thing up, but in here the time to move it out and the time to move it in, it was 4 seconds. Let's put even like 8. It doesn't matter. I mean, we could have a little bit extra power wasted as it moves out rather than just fully utilize it. But what is now interesting is that thing, I want to lock it once it opens up fully. So what happens is this arm here is going to swing out this way, and there is right here just a regular block that I could actually replace with one of those lockable ones, and then this here can actually be on the end of this one of those other connections, so it kind of doesn't really look as nice, but it'll be way more functional. So we could grab the slider track gripper, I always forget the name, and put one here in this direction and put one here in this direction, and then of course we just got to make sure this is upright in here just like that, and this one is upright just like that. So in theory that will now lock it in place. The way that these work, remember, is release connectors. So when this button is not pressed, that's when we need it to be released. When it is pressed, we need it to be active. So this can also be part of our gantry crane, and it'll say release, and here we'll put release. Now what I know is that this can all be one fancy microcontroller with a composite going directly to the seat. You don't have to have all these different things. So this could probably be a controller half the size or 3/4 of the size, but I mean, if it works, it works. So sometimes I don't like to get too fancy. In this case, also practically speaking, there will be no advantage to having a smaller one other than physical size. But as far as the crane function's concerned, there would be no difference. So you can see here, it's opened, and of course I totally miscalculated this because those things are nowhere near close enough, and I should have seen that. But anyways, what is good is this actually now is open even more than what a container is, so that also has to be reduced in size, the track itself, but that is a good starting point. Well, this is quite simply just the fact that this piece was attached to the wrong thing, and this here as well, because those shouldn't be moving. These should be attached to that one, and that should move into place, so that's gonna operate much better. And I like the kind of triangular look here, so I'm gonna do that, and the triangular look here. Now remember, the container size itself does matter, so we will spawn a container on the deck here. We have the nice preset one that is, by all accounts, a functional container. Very simple and easy to kind of make our tests on. And in here there's a microcontroller, so we can actually make the top connectors connected and the bottom ones released. So that's exactly what I want here. And of course, here we need a toggle button whether we've activated our crane or not. So this toggle button will activate these connectors that are on this mechanism. So here it says release. So I tend to prefer to have the button, you press the button to signify that it is on rather than to press the button to signify it's off. So I think here in this case, when you've pressed the toggle button, then it will release the thing. Or when you don't press it. So when you press the button, it's actually active. So until then, it's always released. That's what I want to say. Enable this. We'll keep the toggle button off for now. And once these things lock in place, we can go all the way over top of the container. There you have it. So while it did look funny because of the perspective, if you go to the side, you could see this is exactly the size it should be. And here, if I press the toggle button, of course I didn't plug it into electricity, but we go to custom, infinite for now. There we go, it's plugged in, and then we could actually lift it up a little bit and move it. Now yes, the whole thing is a little unstable, but it seems to still work. And now we can go into here and open up the bay door. So you can see it didn't work right away. There it did. So I really don't know the best way to get around that sort of issue. And now it's stuck there too. Oh, because I have a block on it. Interesting. We'll try that again here. So I do have the new container on this, and the door is going to be fully opened. And then if we press down on the arrow, we can start to lower this container into the bay. Now remember, I said it's self-loading. You could see that we've hit just about the end of the track here, and yet this thing's already touching the bottom. So either I can remove one part of the track and then this will perfectly fit into place, or we could just leave it as sort of a, dummy, or rather have an extra bit of track. My preference probably will be just to remove the track, just so this is where it stops. Now, of course, what we know is that this can now be positioned into place in here. And then, of course, our ship starts to list. So it is highly recommended that if you're doing this, that you do it, and then quickly load up the rest of it. But there, we release that and pull this up. And in theory now, our X frame could take this and push it deeper into the hold and put it in the right place. But if we do that, that can actually probably click it into place, or if not, then I can go above and slowly move a little bit. We move it, and eventually it should... Oh, of course it can't connect. Silly me. So remember, our automated system in the last video dictates that we have to turn this on, and now we have bay 3, which is here, and we turn on the right. And there we go, it's in. So it is a bit of a interesting system, and of course, even with this frame being parked here, you still could get around and to the front if you have something in the containers that you have to get into, so that's quite nice. But it seems that this now fully works, so that seat is functioning. We will reposition it into the hold, but for now that is a working system. For the inside microcontrollers, or for this sort of machine, we need pretty much the same microcontroller up to a certain point. So the first one is this one can only move left, right, and down, and kind of into the bay and out of the bay. So for that, we're just going to make it WSAD. So here for pivot slider, we'll plug into the part of this up here that moves it down. So this one here and this one here. And then we'll plug this into WNS. So that should fully move this thing into and out of the bay. And then this one here will plug into these two, which will actually move the thing left and right. So that is going to be our A and D. Remember, we got to fully make this 100% reset, 100% reset. And once that's 100% reset, which is nice actually, because that's why we could have one chair for both operations. Now, I don't think that this seat is the best for this crane. Yeah, there's a camera here that you could probably watch the whole thing on, but I feel in here is a better place to watch, or on a remote, or possibly even in here, even though then it would be backwards. You'd be watching this from the other perspective. So I'll see what I do with this seat, but until then, we'll just leave it like this. In here, we now have that all activated, so the next thing we have to do is put the button, and the toggle button here is gonna turn on and off the magnets. So that is important to have. Right now, they're on, and remember we said we have to put a not function because when it's not pressed, we need this thing to be released. So that's the top ones, and then, or the bottom, and now the top. So that is fully there. Does this have any locking joints? Not that I see. So this thing is kind of free to flop around. Because it's not too heavy, I'm not too concerned if there's like massive waves that it's going to move around too much. But of course, one can always add sort of a locking mechanism on it. And of course, I do want to plug this thing into the electricity. I know we ended up putting a infinite electric on, but regardless, let's give this a shot in here. So we're going to hop into the hold of the ship, and once we're in here, try to engage the system. So now moving this W, and that's inverse, so that's quite interesting. I'm holding A and it's going to the right, so I do have to fix that. And then presumably when I press this button, if I go down to the frame itself, this should be released connection false. If I press the button, or decrease the button, or turn it off, release is true. So other than the movement, which will be an easy fix, once I'm in here, I can just flip these things around and make this one and this one kind of in opposite directions. There we go. So cut, and then we press U, and there we have it. Now it should be in the opposite direction. Just have to make sure that everything is plugged in back how it was. So this is there, and this is part of the frame. And of course, little beautiful details that are always quite nice on creation. So that will do. That should now be a fully functioning system where we can actually move it left and right and move the container deeper into the base. So let's do a final test of all the mechanisms here that we just worked on and make sure that this system is functioning. So we'll activate the crane. That of course opens it up. I can also activate the magall or magnet or electric connector, and that's plugged in. Now this goes up. Once it's perfectly up, we go down here and activate this and then press this. And of course that didn't work the first time. That did. And now we're sliding. So again, happy with the fact that not happy that I have to do it that way, but I'm happy with now us getting a stable system. And now this can be lowered right in. And once it is at the bottom of the ship, or in the hold, we can release this and bring this back up. So that is a nice kind of self-loading function. And then in here, I can actually turn on the top and bottom connectors of this. Now, it is very important to make sure that your systems here currently aren't attached to anything, because if they're attached, your X-frame will get stuck on them. But, so they're all off, that's fine. And then we can turn this on and push it into the container. There we go. And then this will be able to push the container deeper into the hold. Say we want to go in the deepest part and to the left, we can do it just like that. And you could see that once we've kind of cleared that area, really this thing should stop. There's no need to go deeper into this bay. The reason I made the bay this size is in case you're putting vehicles or boxes or something, but realistically I probably could have just closed it off right here and not have anything go back there. But you could see this works. So we'll push it up a slight little bit, and then we'll release it and push this back. And now, with that out of the way, that is bay 4 left side. So bay 4 left, and it's in. So there we have it. We actually just loaded our first container into the ship using these automated systems, and it seems that it works quite well. Of course, like I said, the ship is going to be listing because we've put it on one side, so in this case you have to load the next container in that area. If you put it here, you're going to be in trouble. So that is looking quite well, and I'm very happy with the result here. Off screen, I ended up making a big microcontroller that will do everything for both the gantry crane and the sort of pusher tool that I have in the hold. And as you could see, it's a complex little microcontroller that kind of has a bunch of switch boxes, because there is two methods to control it right now. There's either the seat itself, or there is the radio. So you can actually use the remote control and control the two sort of loaders. Now the idea that I kind of envisioned behind all this is there'd be one sort of dockside team operating this tug. There'd be one person here in the crane, and then there'd be someone else in this office or control center operating both the above gantry crane system and this pusher. Now, I may still add one more control seat, and that will be this seat here. It doesn't have the best view of everything, but it has kind of an overview enough that I think it would definitely be helpful, and as well as give you a second place to kind of operate the crane. But we'll see if that happens. I'm quite happy with this system because, of course, as you're loading it, you could stand wherever and operate it with the remote control. And then also what I did is I made the mutually exclusive sort of Lua system that I programmed on the display. So then, of course, when you go to the seat in the control panel, you can select between the gantry crane and you can select between the pusher tool here. So in the office right here, you could see you could turn on your cargo CCTV, and then here you have the bay from the front and the back, because of course when you put a lot of containers in here, it'll be quite difficult to see what's in the back, so that is what this is for. And then we have the pusher camera, which is just a camera mounted on the pusher. We have the gantry camera looking down, and we have the crane camera. Now the crane camera I'm not quite sold on. We'll see if I replace it instead with another camera, but that's kind of the system that I have right now. And what I'm gonna do is now activate the system. And you could see then we get our little display on, and now it asks us what mode do we want, and also you could turn on the containers here, or the connectors. So first things first, we'll turn on the gantry. And now with the gantry on, you can see that it automatically opens up, and I'm now controlling it from the seat. So I'm moving it around from the seat, and of course if you are operating the gantry crane, this is perhaps a good kind of camera angle to use. Or if you go into the gantry crane itself, this may be even the best one. Now I will have to do something with the camera, because right now the camera is located right on the front of this system, so it's a little awkward. You'll probably think that you've got to align it with the middle of it, yet here it is. But the reason I don't put something higher is because this gantry crane perfectly clears the other crane system. So that is fully intentional. You don't have to lift up that crane to move the gantry all the way over. So I don't really want to have a higher point. I see there is a bit of a design flaw here. This thing cannot be moved into its cradle that I have on this side here. There's a little connector, but it can't be moved all the way into the cradle because it's actually hitting the cab. So what I'm going to have to do there is move that cradle out a little bit. So we could still move it, it seems, by one block. Well, then it's blocking the stairs. So it seems that this is going to be the maximum area for the gantry, so that's something easy to, or good to note. Anyways, as you could see that we're moving this thing around here, which is quite good. So again, you have the multiple camera angles. We'll see if I can get a better one. And then of course we have this system for the bays. But if I press the container connectors, there is a light on it that starts to flash, because I always find it difficult when you're using a remote operator to know when something's ready. So in this case, this one is ready for you to connect, and it's flashing. But of course in the control panel you see that this is on, but also this one here is flashing. Now if we switch the mode to the pusher, now you can see this one's flashing, and actually there is a light on the pusher as well down here that's flashing, so you can know. Now if I do turn this system off and even turn this system off, you can, well actually sorry, this has to be on, because this is where you could dictate which of the systems you want to operate. But once you do that, if you have a remote control as such, and then you put it on to channel 6, and if I press on, 2 is the button to actually turn on the connector, and then you can actually operate this with the remote. Now just note that there is a bit of a delay, so you do have to sort of feather it. There's a little bit of a learning curve. Like I tap it A and that's how much it moves, but if I hold A and let go, it's still going. So there is a little bit of a delay. Also, if you press 2, it decouples the container, and then as well, if you just move it around, you can see that you're moving it. So that is kind of what the system that I have in place for this, and I do think that it works quite well. Now we said we could try to tackle this thing here. That is quite awkward because it actually limits where I can have the stairs up. So what I may do is put this thing like here on both sides, and that kind of blocks our path a little. Not in love with that. That may be a bit better. Well, as far as kind of a system to make sure that we've latched the thing in place, and then just carry over the release connector from this thing over there into release connector here and release connector here. So now it's in place. and it's locked up, so then this one can actually be deleted, and I can just add a regular sort of track or regular tile here and close this thing off. And actually I believe it looked a little different, like this and this. There. So that kind of looks a little finalized. I guess I could or should paint this, and then this thing here could be gray, or we could just leave it white. Anyways, that works there. Not in love with this, but I think that it'll serve its purpose as far as the locking the crane in place if you do want to leave it up in the front of the vessel. I mean, maybe I could make a button where you fold this thing in, but I kind of just like that when it's activated, it's automatically folded out. You don't get any weirdness. You don't get, like, especially with the remote, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So the detriment is that you may get things that are less ugly like this. Also, you don't have to use it. I guess I could delete that altogether and just have it parked in this position at all times. There's no need to park it back there. One other thing, again, I wasn't in love with this camera, but where else to put it? Like, especially since my height restriction is not very, well, I don't have much of a, it's quite in line with that and here, so I don't have anywhere else to put my camera system, but I could possibly revamp it. Now, central doesn't work because in the center we have this locking mechanism, so that's not great. But I guess since this is actually here, technically I could put the camera on that part because it'll still be able to connect to the containers. Just don't really like how that looks as much, but that may be the best way. Anyways, I'll see. Interesting enough, I just had a thought of maybe putting this thing on the side, because if it's on the side, it'll give you a nice side view of your container, and in that case, it'll tell you if you've centered it on the container, and it'll tell you the position in terms of moving it up and down, and then of course this one here will tell you if you're in line with it this way. So maybe that's an optimal spot for it. This way it kind of watches the crane rather than being an actual part of it. So I will try to change this camera angle to this gun here, and of course we do have to make sure that it is angled down, and I do have a composite in here that's already programmed quite nicely for the downward angle. And lastly, attach a camera or electrical to it. That'll probably be good. So now I've turned it on, and let's kind of watch it. Does it go off screen? It does go off screen a little bit, of course, as we are moving it out. But at least see, like this, you know you're centered. Like this, you see that you're physically centered on the bay. So then you just have to move this thing left and right. And then of course you can go to your deck camera and see that you are aligned with what you need to be aligned with, and then you can drop this onto it. So that is actually an interesting system there. Interesting, when I press up and down it actually stays toggled, so I think that my seat itself is not working properly here. Let's see, up and down is reset, whereas, yeah, okay, there we go. So Gantry up down, and then of course we'll rename these other two as well. This one will be, so I made it say Gantry pusher in out and Gantry pusher left right. Of course the up and down is only for the Gantry, and that is it for this. If we jump up to this microcontroller, however, there is a command for, well, channel 2 here is to activate the container holder, so we know that. Even though I don't believe I attached the seat to it, I did leave it as an option to, and I guess I could, I may as well, it's already here. So it'll just be composite 2 from the seat, attaches on your containers. However, here, seat and channel 1 turns the whole thing on. So you actually could turn it on from the remote control. I actually did forget about that, and I could actually list that here. So this does the same thing as this activate systems. So this button here activates systems, and 2 is what we call this button here, which is gantry pusher container connectors. So the reason why I actually don't mind the seat having all this is because the seat is mirroring what the remote control system does. So when we do put the remote control, it perfectly matches what this seat does. So I'm going to move this note as well down. Maybe I shouldn't be stealing the note, instead draw a new one, but I do like how it's drawn. So there you have it. And I may adjust the table color, but anyways, this note just says turn to channel 6 for remote crane operations. So that is a decent system that we have now in place. Actually, now I thought about it, I do want to make this camera still part of the system. However, that camera is going to go to the video source number 6. And the reason for that is because the whole point of this is to be the gantry crane mover. So I'd rather have as many cameras as possible. So this way you can use this camera to get you aligned, and then you could use this camera as well. Now that is on the very front or top of it, whereas it would be a little nicer here in the middle or somewhere in the middle. But if it's not directly in the middle, I think it is a little devious. Like, I think it's better either on the very front, and you just have to learn that system, or put it dead center. But if you put it like where this light is, you're gonna want to align your camera as best as you can, and then you'll find that you can. So maybe I'll just leave it on the very front, and it is kind of what it is. But this way, I guess it gives us 2 gantry crane views. Now looking at my really complex microcontroller here, I think that I may as well add one more seat function here. And the reason for that is so you can actually use it whether you're in the helm or the bridge. So I'm going to just label it bridge seat. And really what it's going to do is it's going to mirror the same settings we have, with the exception of I don't know if the X frame should use this function at all or not. But I guess since we're already doing it, maybe I just make it such that it does. Because all I have to do is match up the same microcontroller on any of these, or on all of these. And once these are all matched up, you can see that now it just comes down to putting another one of these here. And I could just drag this down a little bit, and then put another one of these down here. And quite simply now that'll attach to the seat from the helm, or in the bridge, pardon me. And then here we'll have to just have a bigger add function. So this is composite 4. Again, we're just mirroring it, so we're adding this. And I'll probably add a actual summary or calculator function rather than this add, and it'll just be x plus y plus z. And then in this case, everything kind of continues to work as it did. And we'll put this exact same function up here. Now, so because I'm doing it this way, I think this is easier than splitting up the various types of crane, like the pusher and the gantry. This way we're just mimicking it fully. So you now have total control on whether you want to make the adjustments to the cargo system from the bridge, or if you want to move down into the controller seat. So then we will mirror the display as well. But what you see here now is a system that actually works quite well in terms of all this. So that is good to know. And then I attach this to the seat itself. Make sure that everything here is fully on reset, which it is. I will want to label everything the same. So we'll just copy it from our lower seat there. The up down is only for the gantry. and then this one does nothing, the left and right. And then we know that number 1 activates the systems, and number 2 is the actual container system. So that's good. They're all both on toggle. So I think we now have it pretty much mirrored, with the exception now that this display isn't showing the right cameras, and not only that, there's no way to select which one we want, because that selection is down here. It's on this display here. As mentioned, to have the control of the display and of the selection of which crane to use, I need to make a composite switch box, and pretty much there's a bridge control override. So once the bridge is indeed activated, the full control goes there. So that's going to just be a simple key, and honestly it could be this one. So I could call this whatever the system is down here. It's like activate Gantry systems, Gantry slash pusher systems, and then I could call it here activate, or instead of that I'll say Gantry pusher system override, control override. So note that when you press that control override, you now have full control up here, and the lower area no longer has control. So that is one of the things. And now I can go ahead and add a little display here. Just a cute little display. And it's going to have the same buttons that we have down there, because it's going to be linked to that, and it'll of course be linked to the same display controller. And as we have all these displays, they're actually attached on a relay, so when we step out of the room, the display isn't going to be on. And of course this one will turn on this screen, and this one will turn on this screen, because this screen is going to be the main screen for our, like, what we see. And that activate crane button here, so this button isn't actually needed, because once you turn this one on, in theory you've activated it. So I can remove this. This one doesn't attach to anything currently, but what we're gonna have to do is down here most likely add a secondary button that will enable all systems, because of course that we've now turned that on, but we've not actually enabled it. You could see here we have only 4 channels, one of them being the remote, one of them being the seat, or 2 of them being the seat, and one of them is the actual button. So that may need to be redone a little. But another way to do it is to have the external input on this. When you press this button here, you externally apply the activate systems button, and that is on. And because this is also attached to a relay, or at least it should have been, when we step out of this room, or if no one is down here, technically this display will not be on. So that is fully part of, or fully intentional, that it's not just blinking or on and causing lag. So I'm trying to optimize it as best as I can. And now what we'll need is another display here, attached as well to the same relay, and this one is also activated by this. And now that is going to be our CCTV system. Now if we look here, we already have a CCTV system on this display, so it is a little redundant, or call it unnecessary. But the way I also see it is these are 2 independent systems. This one is actually the CCTV shipwide system, whereas this is more like a more like just the actual control center. But that said, maybe we could just use this CCTV system to operate our crane. So in that case, this whole display is indeed redundant and can be removed, because we'll be using this one here to operate the crane. Now that said, what I do know is that right here, if we jump to this system is not. It's on the deck, forward, tow, port, starboard, and under. So it's not even on the right channels. Like, it's not showing the right thing. So I think instead of adjusting it, I'll just leave that shipwide CCTV, and instead I'll add a new menu display that is not a 2x monitor. It'll just be a single 3x monitor arrangement. I'm gonna have to hide all these microcontrollers after, but for now I'm just storing them all here. We'll put the touch on the little display here, and then connect that little display to this, connect the big display to this, which currently is telling us that it's attached already to something. Video feed. I need to see what it's attached to. Oh, it's already attached to a switch box that's not doing anything. Good to know. So we'll attach the big monitor to this, there, and then we now have our different systems. So I don't recommend using the pusher from up there, but I guess you can. The more so from up there, you'll be using the gantry. So we can attach it to this one, we can attach it to this one, and then attach it to the pusher itself. If you really do want to use the pusher, you can, though most likely it'll be better from inside that bottom room. And I mean, I could, yeah, put the full system that we have in here, or mirror this full system up there, but I think 3 displays is enough. If you want to use the pusher, you'll be able to. So now that those are all attached, we're going to call this Gantry 1, and I think there was a little bit of an abbreviation. Yeah. So this one will be Gantry 1, Gantry 2, and this will be pusher. Now that even may not fit. We may have to remove another letter. Anyway, that should be kind of the system that we want to have in there. So if I go up here, sit down, turn this, we can now press Gantry, and it's not working. Why are you not working? Well, that opened up, so that is at least something. So we've gotten halfway there. For some reason it's not working, so what I'm going to do actually is also put this on a composite switch box. So we'll have the seat that we all know and love, which is off, and then we'll have the bridge seat when it's on, and these will all attach to the points where this was previously attached to. So right here, and here, and here, and down here, and one more. So then this one does not have to be attached to all these, because again, when you've turned on that override, you really don't need to have the bottom seat still functional, because in theory now, with the way it's set up, is the bottom seat can still operate it, whereas now it's fully off. When you do that, it's fully off. So this case, this seat goes there, this seat goes there. Now I can see that this one's still attached to a couple things, primarily up here. So this one and this one. Now it's pretty clear cut. We got our bridge seats, we got the switch box, we got this. So I will have to add one other button to this massive microcontroller. So that expanded it, didn't erase anything, which is good. And that one button will be that master override for the bridge itself. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here, and just it'll be the bridge override. And that is going to switch this onto that path. If I can find the microcontroller end node. There we go. Okay, that will be there. And that will be attached to that same button up in the bridge right here. Okay, let's give that a shot. And it's working. So now I'm able to use this. I can go to the pusher, turn off gantry, go to pusher, and now I'm moving the pusher around. So that's good. That seems to be working properly. We'll have to rename these a little bit, but in theory now, and then if I turn that off and head on down to this bottom room, that stays on. That's a little unfortunate, but again, when you're out of the room, it doesn't seem to really hurt anything. And then you press gantry and you can turn this on and you can operate your gantry just the same. So seems to be a decent little system with multiple controls. Well, silly me, since I ended up adding another button anyways, I don't have to use the same activate crane button. The override can do the exact same thing. So now this And the activate crane button, which all it does is attach to that, will just be on a simple OR function. So now, and this is what with microcontrollers you can spend forever trying to perfect them, but I think this now will be a little cleaner. And now that crane arm, or this thing, does not have to go and remotely toggle this button. Instead, it's just going to kind of work right away because we've, adjusted and made the microcontroller work. So if I do that, turn on or not, now it's stuck. That button has more power than I thought. So this button actually toggles this as well as toggles the player detection display on of this microcontroller. Okay, now we're on the path. So now this here has to do the same thing. So we have this button and we'll do a simple OR function. So now there and there gets toggled by that or that. That will work. Moment of truth, we turn this system on. Gantry camera, gantry, and we're off. And of course now in this room it's not activated. So you can try to activate it and it'll turn on, but I guess, can you then override it? Oh, interesting. So now we've actually stolen it over top of that one, because if I go in here, I will no longer have the control, I believe, that I once had. Yeah. Oh. Interesting. Well, that's interesting. You override it to use it, but you can now use it sequentially. That's even better. Perfect. So, quite happy with the system there. We'll move this spider web of things away, put it in this part of the hull where it's not bothering anything. And that is it. So this ship is ready for, testing and all that good stuff, and I can't wait to see what kind of results everyone gets. I'm going to put it in for beta testing right after I finish this video, so it's going to go out to my Discord users, it'll go to the Golden Anchor Club, it'll go to the server boosters from my Discord, and I can't wait to see the kind of feedback and information that I get from them, because it definitely will be interesting to see how this system and ship works. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoy this creation when it comes out. Stay tuned for more content, more videos, more creations, and as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone.